Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel, Apocalypse Movies. It is the Fandalorian Club here on the channel as we are getting into some Star Wars television. It is our weekly recap show, and it's double dosage starting this week as the Mandalorian drops. But this is all about the Bad Batch. We are back with the Bad Batch. Deeply apologize for missing the last few weeks and not reviewing these episodes. Just gotten a little behind, and we've missed the last two. And there was a reason for one of them, and we just straight up missed last week. We had some things going on, and we weren't able to lock down a time. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to quickly cover episode 10 and then talk mainly about episode 11, which was today. Or yesterday, I should say, as when this drops on YouTube, yesterday's episode, this week's episode. If you want to hear myself and Brian's thoughts on episode 9, The Crossing, head over to Star Wars Explained, which I will link it in the description for everybody. We did a review over there. That's why we missed this that week reviewing that episode here on the channel. We were on that show during our normal recording time. And so if you want to hear our thoughts on episode 9, The Crossing, go ahead and check out Star Wars Explained with Alex and Molly Damon. It was absolutely fantastic. Had a blast over there talking that episode. But let's get into these past two episodes. So I'm going to quickly cover episode 10 and then dive into episode 11, which I think is a great episode of Star Wars television. Episode 10 is titled Retrieval, and it's kind of a second parter of what The Crossing was. The Crossing, we saw the Batch sent on a mission to retrieve some special elements, if you will. I'm forgetting the term of it off the top of my head, but a special rock is what I'll say. And during that episode, they get their ship stolen. Now, this episode, Retrieval, is all about getting their ship back. And we learn that it has been stolen by a kid who essentially works for a gangster, and they have to do things to basically survive and eat and make their way up the food chain. And so what they do is they track it, they find their way there, and we get this whole story of a basically bringing this worker system to justice and taking down this gangster who is not only taking wages from the kids, but clearly abusing the kids and the power that he has from what is left over from previous regime. So we see a whole bunch of cool action go on. We see some really good character development between these characters. Omega is obviously sent off on her own because she can fit in. She kind of gets some equipment and some information. And again, it's about the Batch kind of helping these kids out and bringing justice to what's going on. And I think it was an absolutely fantastic job of storytelling. And we thought it was just going to be about retrieving the ship and, getting their parts back. And it was so much deeper than that, so much more interesting than that. Again, our characters are kind of put through the ringer of, moral dilemmas. And we've seen it so many times, not just in this season, but the previous season, of these characters learning on the fly because they were, kind of just in a cocoon when it came to, the previous actions that they were a part of as far as the clone army and everything that happened with the Republic. I wanted to say rebellion for some reason, but I know it's not the rebellion, it's the Republic. So every time that something happens with these characters, majority of the time they're learning something through these little quests and missions that they go about. And again, I talked about it a lot on that episode with Alex and Molly on Star Wars Explained, but I mentioned how I think a lot of people are forgetting that this show was always originally described, when it first was announced, it was originally described as them becoming mercenaries, them going on missions to retrieve items or, search people out or whatever it may be, that them being on the mercenary side of the galaxy. And we lose sight of that because their story is so just twisted within what the Empire is doing. And rightfully so. Like, we want to see them go up against Crosshair and everything that the Empire is kind of doing at the moment. But they are mercenaries when it comes down to it. And so we're seeing these missions and things like this happen in the mercenary world. I don't know if every mercenary gets their ship stolen. That happens. But because they're good-hearted mercenaries, which is a weird way to put it, they're on the right side of things. They're going to, stop and think about, okay, well, is it our job to help these kids out, or is it our job to do what we came here to do and leave? And most of the time, 99% of the time, the Bad Batch does what's right and they help because that is in their good nature. So I thought episode 10 was really, really good. I thought it was very enjoyable. Again, there were a lot of good moments in the episode between characters and learning moments. And I think Omega went through a lot in this episode. She learned a lot. And yeah, I mean, it was a good finish to the two-parter. And I thought it was just a great way to kind of, morph those two episodes together. So, again, that was episode 10, Retrieval. I wasn't going to spend too much time on that. I really want to get to episode 11. And because that was the big one this week. That was a very, very big episode in the terms of Bad Batch. So let's get to it. Metamorphosis, excuse me, is what it's called. Episode 11 of the Bad Batch. We only have a few episodes left. It's wild to think, but and I know with Mandalorian being 8 episodes and Boba Fett being 7, and like it's kind of been here and there with a bunch of the shows. Bad Batch was 16. I believe there's 16 this season. I'm pretty sure. But we only have 5 left after this week. 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So it's coming down to the wire, and I'm pretty sure that the finale is a 2-episode finale, which means we only have 4 weeks left of Bad Batch going all the way through March. And, they have to get through it really quickly because they want to leave some of the room for Mandalorian to kind of live on its own, which makes sense. But when it came to this episode, Metamorphosis, this is kind of what we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks of, Bad Batch. As much as I love the side quests and the missions and the mercenary side of things, it's always kind of established that it's these characters versus whatever the Empire is doing. Like they just cornered them into that side of the galaxy, and that's the story that they want to tell. This season specifically has been very heavy on the mercenary side and side missions and doing things for Sid, etc. And this episode starts off, well, we get a little intro part of the episode where we see a trooper and he's trying to survive essentially, and he ends up being killed. We see this ship that ends up being abandoned. And thankfully, we're back to Mount Tantus, which is a huge, huge deal. We've been calling for it all year long. It was that huge cliffhanger at the end of season 1, and we're finally back to it. And so we're getting more information on Mount Tantus here, and rewind back to the Clone Wars days, which I think is super, super cool. A question we've always kind of wondered of what's happened to this character. They bring the Zillo Beast back into the fold, which I think is just so brilliant. That was one of the biggest kind of mysteries of the Clone Wars, is when those, I think it was 2 episodes. I might be mistaken, but we had that arc of the Zillo Beast, and the Zillo Beast wasn't just captured, but it was also brought to Coruscant, where it kind of raged and got loose and destruct, which they actually called back to in this episode, which I thought was great. And we never really learned as to why the Emperor wanted the Zillo Beast. Excuse me. It was obvious in ways, right? Protection, weapons, abilities. We saw what the Zillo Beast was capable of. And so I thought, we could put the pieces together. But we always wanted to see it, right? And it took a while, but we're finally here. And we saw the Zillo Beast, and it's not the original Zillo Beast. It's a clone of the Zillo Beast, which is a huge, huge deal. Kind of forming different DNA and possibly different creatures together. But we see this kind of different version of a Zillo Beast that seems much stronger, much more capable. And the Bad Batch has never seen it in person, but again, they referenced the Zillo Beast that attacked Coruscant many, many years ago during the war. And now I'm fast forwarding, obviously, but getting to Mount Tantus, and I'm forgetting the names, I apologize, but we meet what I am assuming is a head cloner for the Imperial side. He arrives on Mount Tantus ahead of the Zillo Beast. Excuse me. And he tries to talk Nala, the cloner, the original cloner, the Kaminoan cloner. I forgot the name for a second. I apologize. And she's in prison. He's trying to talk her into doing it, and she's just not listening. She's not listening. And so we end up finding out that the prime minister of Kamino is on Coruscant, just being held, and he requests the prime minister to be brought to Mount Tantus. which I thought is very, very interesting, bringing that character back into the fold. We saw Nala say at the end of season 1. We've been waiting to see her again. Such a great character. Obviously had connections to Omega. And now we learn that Nalase is just not cooperating and they want the prime minister, which is a very interesting tidbit. So we get to the Bad Batch part of all this, and Sid, they're having a little bit of conversation with Sid, and they're not happy that Sid basically just ditched him in the previous 2 episodes. And that's a conflict that we had talked about previously of how are they going to handle that. That's a big deal that she wouldn't, lend a hand in any capacity, right? You think that sorry. Goodness. You think that being the one that sends you on these missions to retrieve items or cargo or whatever it may be, that person, if you're in trouble, is going to help. And she didn't. She flat out didn't. She said she was busy elsewhere. She was doing other things, and it's just not something that she wanted to do. And so the Batch, rightfully so, is not happy about it. And they're talking to her when we first meet her. They're kind of hashing out a little bit. And the call ends, and they're questioning whether or not they should stay with her and that it would have repercussions and kind of what would it look like. And so I do think that by the end of the season, they'll be done with Sid. I think that it'll be over and done with. If we get a season 3, which I believe we'll get a season 3, because the show is just, it's so good. And I think it's such good storytelling and in such a unique place in Star Wars that we don't get a lot of, which I think is very cool. And I love the characters. I mean, I think the story of Omega and her character, there's so many possibilities, and she's connected to the Batch, obviously. So why would you end it? But they're they have all the right in the world to question whether or not they should be doing what they're doing with the character of Sid. And so she, at the end of that call, says, "Hey, I have this mission for you. It's cargo. Ship went down. I want you to grab some stuff." And that's when they were kind of curious, right? They were picking around and wondering if they should do this or not. At the end of the day, they do it. They're going for it. They're saying, "Hey, how hard can it be to grab some cargo?" And they get there, and boom, it's the Zillo Beast. They not invade, sorry. They basically set foot on this ship. They learn that it's Kaminoan cloning technology, but not any kind of cloning technology they've seen before. They're getting all of this information from Omega because she was obviously heavily involved with it, or around it at least, when it came to Kamino. And she was very close to Nala Se, which we will get to a little bit later. So they see that. And then while Tech is on the bridge, kind of getting information and trying to put the power back on, you have Wrecker, you have Hunter, and you have Omega, who comes across a Zillo Beast. And it's just a baby Zillo Beast at this moment. Like, still very strong, still very powerful, just kind of let loose on the ship. And because there's no power on the ship, it hasn't been able to feed. So just for anybody watching who didn't know, the Zillo Beast is able to get stronger and bigger in size by feeding off of energy. And so when the ship gets turned on, that's when you start seeing the Zillo Beast feed off of energy. And whether it's any type of electricity, power cells, etc., it's feeding off of that and not just growing in ability, but growing in size. And so throughout the next couple of minutes, we see it feeding off of, what I look are power cells and engine cells. And it's growing and getting stronger, and they're not able to knock it down. They're not able to put any blast fire on it. And it's some good action. And I'm going to be honest, while I was watching it, I think that I was like so happy that we got the Zillo Beast back. I think that, again, going back to what I was saying earlier, it's one of the biggest mysteries from the Clone Wars that I was curious if we ever going to get it. It was kind of like in this weird little pocket. It was so unique and different from what was currently happening in the series. And it could have been a story that you just pushed off and never touched again, but it has a lot of possibilities as well. Like, why does the Emperor specifically want this Zillo Beast, right? I apologize if you hear my laundry in the background. It's currently going. It gets a little loud at times, so that's probably what the banging might be if you hear it. But I'm glad that we're back there. Like, we're finally seeing what this is all about. And maybe some people out there who do some deep dives could have put the pieces together at the end of last season. The fact that they were on Mount Tantus and going back to the cloning stuff. but you never know, right? And so it is a cool thing to finally get to see the Zillow Beast and be there and see that storyline fleshed out even more so than it was before. So after kind of battling back and forth with the Zillow Beast, it getting a little bit bigger with the power cells of the ship, and then after Tech blows up the ship, blows a hole in the hull, or the hole, not the hull, hole in the hull, hole in the ship is what I should just say. Let's be honest. The Zillow Beast escapes. It runs off, and it immediately runs to the closest village in proximity and feeds off of its energy. And it goes full Godzilla, full King Kong, climbs a power tower. I'm just all about these words today, guys. And feeds off the energy and gets to full Zillow Beast size. It was really cool seeing that animation again, after the original Clone Wars series and having the animation, the Zillow Beast. Then the technology and animation for this style, which Bad Batch and Clone Wars are the same exact animation style, but it's evolved over the past number of years. Remember, we got Clone Wars season 7 not too long ago, but the show ended in like 2011. So we have at least 10 years of animation evolution that the Zillow Beast from the previous incarnation to now, even though it looks very similar because of the style, the actual effects itself are way, way better than before. And, like I said, it's been 10 plus years. You think that would happen. And we don't talk about it enough on this show, but many shows in general, Clone Wars season 7 and Bad Batch animation, it's absurd how good it is. It is ridiculous how absolutely beautiful it is to look at. The way the characters move, certain designs for like ships or villages or anything really. It's just so realistic when it comes to animation. It's so vibrant and colorful. I just love it. I love it. And it started with season 7 of Clone Wars. It filtered right into the Bad Batch. And again, we just don't talk about it enough. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. But now look, we get this once we see the Zillow Beast kind of going all out, getting energy, we get this cool action sequence where Hunter and Wrecker are trying to take it down with the Marauder. Shooting it's not working because the power cell that this thing has, not the power cell, excuse me, the shell, I should say, that the Zillow Beast has is just impenetrable. It's not something that you can just shoot your way through, right? It has very, very, very strong skin. It has a very hard back. It's just a powerful animal, powerful creature in the world of Star Wars. Some incredible action took place in this sequence here. We see the Empire filter in eventually after they learn what happened to the Zillow Beast. And we see Hunter and Wrecker fighting not just the Zillow Beast, but Imperial ships. And unfortunately, towards the end, we see the Imperial ship capture the Zillow Beast. They have a weapons array of some kind that is able to essentially knock it out. Not put it unconscious, but what I almost feel like exhausts it, just tires it out, and it just falls to the floor. And they're able to capture it and take it to Mount Tantus. And so they end up getting the Zillow Beast back. But the key here is that Tech and Omega and all of that nonsense, they got a ton of information about what is kind of happening, and that what happened to Camino and Topeka City, excuse me, wasn't just to destroy cloning technology. It was, in the words of Tech, to destroy it so they could control it. And we knew that as viewers. Like, we've obviously been seeing that for a while, but the patch didn't know that themselves, and now they do. And Hunter says, send this to Rex and Echo, see what they can do with it, see what kind of information they can get with it. So what I'm imagining now is going forward with 5 episodes left, 4 weeks. I think it's all out. I think it's all out on cloning. It's going to be Bad Batch versus Empire. Let's not forget that we've seen barely anything of Crosshair, right? We've seen Rampart just a few times. He's currently in jail. I think it's now balls to the wall, for lack of a better term. I think they're going all out. They're going for it. And it's going to be the Bad Batch away from the mercenary life, back into the fight against the Empire, possibly with the helping hand of Rex and Echo. And I think the next 5 episodes are going to be absolutely incredible. I think they're going to be some just fantastic storytelling. We're going to be fully diving into the clone aspect because that was what they left us with in season 1. And now at the end of season 2, we're finally getting to it. And it's awesome. I think it's great. And, speaking of cloning and the Empire, we meet this brand new character that I don't believe we've ever met before. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. Who is the head of cloning for the Imperials. He's on Mount Tantus. He's requesting all of these things and getting them. And because Nala Se wouldn't cooperate, he calls the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister isn't helping with cloning, but he gives him one piece of information that will help Nala Se do what he wants him to do. And here goes my laundry, guys, right at the perfect time, right? The climax of this conversation is happening when my laundry is absolutely going haywire. So I apologize. The Prime Minister tells this character, you have to find a young girl. She is the key to Nala Se cooperating. Obviously, he's talking about Omega. So that is what I'm going back to what I was saying about the next 5 episodes are going to be balls to the wall. They're going to be coming for Omega. They don't know who the Bad Batch is. And, the Imperials came back to Mount Tantus and told them, hey, a ship escaped during the battle, and they wanted to find out who it was. I don't know if they'll find out who it was. I'm sure they will, but maybe they cross paths somehow, and they're going to be coming for Omega. And so the question is, do they get Omega? Do the Bad Batch head to Mount Tantus? Is there some kind of crossfire in between? It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think. I think it's going to be, intense because they're coming for the one thing that has kind of opened the eyes to the Bad Batch. And, they lost Crosshair. They didn't lose Echo, but Echo is off for a little while. Omega has become part of this family. She's a part of the Bad Batch just as much as the others. And if they do lose her, that's a big, big deal. I kind of picture it in a way of Mandalorian season 2 when Din lost Grogu to Moff Gideon. That's kind of what I'm picturing happening here. Very similar situation, right? Like they wanted Grogu to clone, take the blood, etc. In this sense, it's not so much the blood and the clone, but to use Omega against Nala Se to help with the cloning. But very similar. Like they're going to come for Omega. Bad Batch is Din in this situation. I have a feeling that they're going to get Omega, and the Bad Batch is going to have to go after her. I do think, though, because I don't know where the story goes after season 2. I do think that possibly the second to last or the last couple episodes take place on Mount Tantus. I think that's like where the big shebang finale is on Mount Tantus. Because through everything that's happened this season, the entire main point of the season 2 is the cloning. No matter what's happened with like the riot racing or the pirates or anything like that, season 2 end goal was always going to be about the cloning. So it would make sense for it to take place on Mount Tantus. So I'm super excited. I love this episode. I think it's one of not just the best of this season, but the best episodes overall. I loved the storytelling, the wraparound back to Clone Wars. This show is killing it. And I just think it's a great story in Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars animation is pretty much perfect. Like they never do wrong. There's, okay episodes here and there, but for the most part, Star Wars animation absolutely crushes it. So I'm very, very happy with this episode. Again, it's one of the best of this season as well as the season or series overall. So you cannot go wrong with this. I think that it sets up some very exciting possibilities going forward, and I'm super excited to get into it. So that is my review of the last 2 episodes of The Bad Batch. I appreciate you guys watching. If you did, I know we're a little late on these, but we're getting back into it. We have 5 episodes left, and the plan going forward for The Bad Batch, we will be pre-recording reviews before we go live for The Mandalorian, and then we'll be uploading them on Thursday morning. So you will see our reviews uploaded to the channel on Thursday mornings for The Bad Batch. They won't be live just because doing 2 live shows back-to-back on Wednesdays would be tough. But we're going to dive into everything Bad Batch. And obviously, when it comes to the finale, we'll probably try our best to do a live discussion because it ends everything. So just for the next couple of weeks, they will be pre-recorded, and then we will keep you guys updated on the season finale. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. Again, we apologize for getting these out late, but we are back in action, getting ready to go. Make sure you're also checking out our Mandalorian reviews. Those are live every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Pacific. So again, my name is Jake Berlin. I appreciate you guys joining me. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button. Join us here on Apocalypse. We would love to see you guys like, share, comment. Of course, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. And I hope you guys are doing great out there. So, stay safe, be well, and may the force be with you. Bye, guys.